Bitcoin so far has held up. And in fact, if you look at Bitcoin dominance, which is the percent of total crypto market capitalization that is Bitcoin, it's been moving up. Now it's almost back up to 69%. So Bitcoin is holding on to value while a lot of these cryptos are selling off, because obviously if Ripple is a security, well, what about all the others? I mean, there could be a lot of other cryptos that could be deemed securities, and so people are selling. And what this is also doing, though, is creating, I believe, a false sense of confidence among the Bitcoin hodlers that this somehow validates Bitcoin and is actually good for Bitcoin because it's going to take out the altcoins, right? There are a lot of people who are excited about these other coins, right? They really, hey, this is now the season of altcoins. Altcoins are going to have another big run. And this is, taking the wind out of the sails of that narrative. And of course, you've got the other people out there, these Bitcoin maximalists that really love this because they've been saying, hey, it's Bitcoin is the only one that matters. All the rest of it is shit coins and none of them matter. Ironically, of course, there's really no difference. I mean, it's all nothing. It's all just digital fantasy. So to say that one coin is worthless, but Bitcoin isn't, the only difference really in my mind is the brand. I mean, Bitcoin has got a better known brand because it was the first mover, so it's got the greatest market share, but intrinsically there's really no difference. I mean, yes, some of them are proof of work versus proof of stake, or however you want to do it. I mean, at least Bitcoin has a theoretical limit on the number of Bitcoin, the 21 million, although there's some question as to whether the miners, if enough of them wanted to increase the quantity, if they could vote to do it, and I'm not really sure about that. Whatever Bitcoin has that's unique to it can clearly be improved on with some later variation of the same concept. Because as I've said many times on my podcast, never in the history of inventions has the first one been the best one. I mean, there's never been something that was invented that wasn't later improved upon by somebody else. So to think that there won't be an improvement on Bitcoin, I think is extremely naive. But regardless of that, right now, it's these other altcoins that are feeling the ripple, and they are being dragged down in sympathy to Ripple. But I think if you are in Bitcoin and you think that, hey, the regulators are not going to go after Bitcoin, Bitcoin is somehow sacrosanct, you better really think about this hard. Because first of all, there's a decent chance that Bitcoin is also going to be categorized as a security. Now, I know a lot of people think, well, wait a minute, the government has already said it's a commodity, right? It's not a security. They've already defined Bitcoin as a commodity, and that's true. They have. But you know what? They can change their mind. Certainly, the Biden administration, you have some new players in there. They may decide that the original assessment of Bitcoin being a commodity was incorrect. Because after all, I mean, it's not really a commodity in that nobody uses it the way you use other commodities. The only thing that people use Bitcoin for is as a means of getting rich. All of the marketing, all of the promotion of Bitcoin, even now, as digital gold. I mean, it's not digital gold because you could use it to make digital jewelry. It's digital gold because people think it's going to appreciate. It's a hedge against inflation. It's a hedge against monetary madness and quantitative easing. People are saying buy Bitcoin now because it's going to go to 500,000. It's going to go to 1 million. People don't market commodities with that perspective. I mean, some people might buy commodities because they want to hoard them because they think the price is going to go up. But there's a lot of people who buy commodities because they want to use the commodities. They need them for something. There is no need for Bitcoin. 100% of the market is people who are expecting appreciation, which is half of the definition of a security, right? If you're buying something on the expectation of making a profit, that's half of what you need for something to be considered an investment contract and therefore security. Now, where the people in Bitcoin think they're safe, and this is a big difference between Bitcoin being decentralized and a currency like Ripple, is with Ripple, you have that company that basically creates all the ripples and sells all the ripples into circulation. With Bitcoin, there is no one company. There is no Bitcoin corporation. There's all these independent miners, right? But you have to spend the money to create a Bitcoin. You just don't have a bunch of them that you can market. So you have all these different miners who are out there creating Bitcoin. And so there's not one entity that you can point to that says, hey, this is where the entrepreneurial effort is. This is where the management is working to enhance the value of the Bitcoin for the common enterprise, for everybody who owns Bitcoin. But I can easily see the SEC making an argument. I don't necessarily say that I would agree with the argument. There's a lot of things that the government does that I don't agree with, but that doesn't stop them from doing it, because the government always tries to overreach, which is what they try to do in my case by claiming that the Perthman certificates was a security. I mean, if I hadn't pushed back and fought them and spent money on outside legal opinion, who knows? I mean, I could have just rolled over and just accepted their decree that it was a security, but they tried to claim it. So if they could try to claim that a warehouse receipt for gold is a security, they can easily claim that Bitcoin is a security. Now, why do I think they would do that, or what would be their rationale? Well, number one, I said, clearly, everybody who owns Bitcoin is buying it for appreciation. So there is a common purpose, a common enterprise. All the people who own Bitcoin expect to benefit from the appreciation in the Bitcoin price. Is there a person or group of persons or companies whose entrepreneurial efforts or whose management is instrumental to the expectation of additional value or a higher price of Bitcoin, or in driving that price? And I think the SEC can argue yes. First of all, you have all these miners whose expending money to not only mine Bitcoin into existence, but also to validate all of the transactions that take place. Somebody needs to validate those transactions. There needs to be a network. And every time they validate those transactions, they do earn a fee. But without the miners, there is no value to Bitcoin. You need this network. They need to constantly spend money on power and energy, which is why it's so expensive. They have to have the hardware. They have to reinvest. So you have this whole industry that is working to create value for Bitcoin. And without those efforts, the Bitcoins wouldn't have any value. Then you also have all these exchanges that are working to create value by creating liquidity for the Bitcoin, so people have places to trade. You have funds like Grayscale that are spending tremendous amounts of money to market and advertise Bitcoin for the purpose of getting people to buy it. And why are they trying to get people to buy it? Because they're telling them they're going to get rich if they buy it. They should sell their gold and they should buy it. This is the new gold that's going to make you rich. This is your ticket to Easy Street. But then, of course, you've got these whales. You have a small number of people who control most of these Bitcoin. And my guess is they are working collectively behind the scenes, promoting, marketing, contacting reporters. I mean, really trying to drive the narrative and the hype for the sole purpose of getting the price of Bitcoin to go up, to benefit all of the people who already own Bitcoin, and of course to benefit themselves because they own the most Bitcoin. So I think the government could argue that collectively you have a group of people who are working for the common good of everybody who owns Bitcoin and being paid. Remember, everybody who owns Bitcoin, when the miners are rewarded with additional Bitcoin, that means that the total supply of Bitcoin increases, which means, all else being equal, the value of everybody's Bitcoin is marginally reduced to accommodate the rewards that are being paid to the miners, not just for mining, but to validate these transactions. But all of this is being done for the common good of everybody who owns a piece of Bitcoin, any Bitcoin. And so I think the government could make the argument that Bitcoin is a security. Now, maybe they won't win the argument, but maybe they will.